Hello students. So today we will explore the chapter 9 hydrocarbon. This is our theory part 18 and we will cover the NCERT section 9.5.7 in it. So this is a disclaimer. Now after attending this lecture, you will be able to learn about carcinogenicity and toxicity. So carcinogenicity means the ability of a substance to cause cancer, while toxicity refers to how harmful a substance is to living things. We will discuss how certain hydrocarbon can be dangerous, why that is, and what real life examples you might encounter. This is important for understanding both science and the safety aspects of your hydrocarbon. Now, particular topic that we will cover in today's class is section 9.5.7, carcinogenicity and toxicity. This is according to your NCERT. Now, let's start the topic. So, for first of all, the definition. So, carcinogenicity is the process by which a normal cell is transformed into a cancerous cell, and this can happen because of a chemical substance, radiation, or something radioactive. It is important to understand that this transformation is what leads to cancer. Notice how the term carcinogen carcinogen is any substance that causes cancer. If you hear about a chemical or agent being carcinogen, it means it has the potential to trigger this dangerous transformation of cells into cancerous cells. Now, let us look at some examples of carcinogens. These are substances or agents that can actually cause cancer in living organisms. We will break them down into chemical, biological, and radiation types. So, first one is chemical carcinogens. A common example is tobacco, smoke, which contains many harmful chemicals. Benzene is another chemical that can cause cancer, and it is found in things like gasoline and industrial solvents. Now, let's talk about biological carcinogens. So, some viruses can cause cancer, such as hepatitis B and human papilloma virus or HPV. These viruses can affect cells and trigger changes that may eventually lead to cancer. Now, finally, radiation can also be a cause of this carcinogen. Ultraviolet rays from the sun, as well as alpha particles and gamma rays from radioactive materials, can damage cells and increase the risk of cancer. So, to sum up, carcinogens can be chemical, biological, or physical in nature. It is important to be aware of these risks in our environment. Now, let's talk about the toxicity. This is an important topic because it helps us understand how different substances can affect living organisms. So, if you want to define toxicity, it is the degree to which a substance can harm an organism. It is a measure of how dangerous a chemical or material is to living things. Notice the emphasis on can harm. Not all substances are equally toxic, and the effect depends on the dose and exposure. Now, it covers a variety of, I would say, a wide range of harmful effects. This can be anything from immediate poisoning to long term damage to specific organs like the liver or kidneys. It is important to remember that toxicity isn't about death or severe illness, it can also include subtle or delayed effects. Now, let us look at some examples of toxins. These examples will help us see the different types of substances that can be toxic, whether they are chemical, biological, or physical in nature. First, chemical toxicants. These include substances like lead and mercury, which are heavy metals, as well as pesticides and carbon tetrachloride, a chemical solvent. All of these can cause harm if they enter the body in sufficient amounts, often by interfering with the normal biological processes. Now, next is biological toxicants. These are toxins produced by living organisms such as bacteria that make botulinum toxin, botulinum toxin, or animals like snakes that produce venom. These substances can be extremely potent even in very small amounts. Finally, we have physical toxicants. Examples: azibatoes. Example include. So finally, we have physical toxicants. Example includes asbestos fibers and coal dust. They don't act chemically, but their physical presence in our body, like in the lungs, can cause serious health problems over time. Now, we are focusing on a special type of hydrocarbon called carcinogenic hydrocarbon. So, we'll take the turn on it. These are compounds made up of only hydrogen and carbon, but they have a dangerous property. They can cause cancer. Let's see what makes them so harmful and where we might encounter them. So, if I try to define carcinogenic hydrocarbon, then they are compounds that are made of hydrogen and carbon and has the potential to cause cancer by damaging our DNA in the cells. It is important to remember that not all hydrocarbon are carcinogenic, but some specific types are particularly dangerous. The most significant groups of carcinogenic hydrocarbons is called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon or PHAs. These molecules have several benzene rings fused together, making them especially stable and reactive in the body. Structure of these rings plays a vital role in their harmful effects. Now, let us talk about the nature of these compounds. So, carcinogenic hydrocarbons are lipid soluble, which means they dissolve easily in fats and can accumulate in our body tissues over time. Their stability makes them hard to break down, increasing the risk of long term exposure. Now, let us have a look at the formation of these hydrocarbons. They are not just found naturally, they are produced during certain processes. One major way your carcinogenic hydrocarbon are formed is through incomplete combustion. This means when substances like tobacco, coal, petroleum, or wood burn without enough oxygen, these harmful compounds are produced. Think about how smoke from a fire or cigarette contains these chemicals. Besides combustion, these hydrocarbons are also present in vehicle exhaust, grilled or fried foods, and especially in cigarette smoke. Everyday activities like cooking or being near traffic can expose us to these compounds, so it is important to be aware of these sources. Finally, let us discuss why this topic matters. So, carcinogenic hydrocarbons are major contributors to cancer of the lungs, skin, and liver. Understanding their sources and effects helps us make safer choices and reduce our risk. Now, we will look at some examples of carcinogenic hydrocarbon. We will focus specifically on a compound called 1,2-benzaanthracene, which is important in both chemistry and health studies. Let us see what makes this compound hydrocarbon special. So, introducing your 1,2-benzaanthracene. This is a type of hydrocarbon with a complex structure. Notice the name. Benzaanthracene tells us it has benzene ring fused together, which is a common feature in many carcinogenic compounds. So, here we have a definition for 1,2-benzaanthracene. It is a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon or PAH for short. That means it has multiple benzene rings joined together, in this case 4 fused rings. These structures are known for their stability and unfortunately their potential to cause cancer. Take a look at the structure to see how the rings are connected. So 3 are linear and the third one is present in an angular form. Now let's talk about where we find the 1,2-benzaanthracene. It is present in coal tar, tobacco smoke, and vehicle exhaust. These are all common sources in our environment, which means people can be exposed to these compounds in everyday life, especially in polluted area or through smoking. Now, let us discuss about 1,2-benzaanthracene affects the body. How this affects the body. When it enters the body, it is metabolized, means it is chemically changed into reactive substances. These new substances can interact with the DNA and cause damage, which is one way cancer can start. This process shows why exposure to such hydrocarbon is danger. Now, to metabolize means to transform substances such as food, minerals, or alcohol into other form like energy, new cells, or waste product through chemical processes within the body. For example, the body metabolizes fats, breaking them down to be cleared by the liver, and it metabolizes glucose to provide the energy needed for its function. Same Similar to that, your body can metabolize 1,2-benzoanthracene to produce harmful substances for your body. Now, continuing further with the examples of carcinogenic hydrocarbon, next we have 3-methyl. The first example that we will discuss is 3-methyl colanthrene, often abbreviated as 3MC. This is a specific type of hydrocarbon with a complex ring structure. Notice the name methyl means it has a CH3 group attached, and a colanthrene refers to its multi-ring system. We will see why this structure is important for its biological activity. Now, if I try to define this, it is an alkylated polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, or PAH. These are molecules with multiple fused benzene rings, and the alkylated part means it has extra groups attached to it, which are not a part of the aromatic ring. Scientists uses 3MC in research to deliberately induce tumors in lab animals, helping us understand how cancer develops. The image here shows its molecular structure, which is key to know how it interacts with DNA. Now, let's talk about where 3MC comes from. It is found in trace amount in coal tar and heavy petroleum products. These are substances produced when coal or oil is processed. So 3MC can be present in the environment wherever these materials are used or burned. This highlights the link between industrial processes and potential health risks. Finally, let us look how 3MC cause harms. Inside the body, it is again metabolized similar to that of the previous example, and they are metabolized into reactive epoxides. You know what is epoxide? So whenever you see that the ring is formed, a three-membered ring is formed by 2 carbon and oxygen, we call it as a epoxide. When this happens, it can cause mutations, which are changes in the genetic code that may lead to cancer. This mechanism shows us why certain hydrocarbons are so dangerous, why understanding their chemistry is important for public health. Now, continuing with the example of carcinogenic hydrocarbon, let us introduce 1,2-benzapyrene or 1,2-benzo-A-pyrene, made up of 5 connected ring. It is well known example of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, or PAH, which means it has multiple benzene rings fused together. Now, if I try to define it, it is classified as group 1 human carcinogen by IARC, which means there is strong evidence it causes cancer in humans. Structure shown in the image, those 5 rings are what makes it polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon. These structures are stable and can persist in the environment for a long exposure of time. Now, let's look at where benzo A pyrene comes from. It is produced from fossil fuels, wood, or tobacco. So whenever they are burnt, they produce this benzo A pyrene. Now, this combustion is occurring at a limited amount of oxygen supply, and that is the reason it is forming your carcinogen hydrocarbon. So, it is found in car exhaust, cigarette smoke, and even grilled foods. This shows us how everyday activities can expose us to harmful chemicals. Lastly, talking about its mechanism, so it is metabolized into a diol epoxide that forms DNA adducts leading to cancer. So, to sum up, a group 1 human carcinogen is any substance that the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, has confirmed causes cancer in people. This classification is based on strong evidences from studies in humans. Remember, understanding these risks help us make safer choices in our daily life. Now, moving on further. Next, let us introduce 1,2,5,6 dibenzoanthracene. This is a complex molecule made up of 5 interconnected rings, which makes it a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, or PAH for short. These structures are common in pollutants and are known for their stability and persistence in the environment. Now, this thing is seen in all the carcinogenic hydrocarbon, and that is the reason they are very harmful. Looking closer at 1,2,5,6 dibenzoanthracene, it is found as a pollutant in smoke and oils. Notice the diagram, it shows 5 ring structures. These type of molecules are produced in many everyday situations, especially where organic materials are burned. Now, talking about the sources, it is mainly formed from incomplete combustion, which means burning without enough oxygen. This happens in car engines, factories, and even when we burn wood or coal at home. Industrial emissions are also a major cause for the production of 1,2,5,6 dibenzoanthracene. Lastly, talking about why this compound is dangerous. 1,2,5,6 dibenzoanthracene is highly genotoxic, means it can damage genetic material. It does this by slipping between DNA strands and causing mutations, which can lead to cancer. Remember, understanding this mechanism help us see why controlling pollution is so important. Now, moving on further. After that, now we will look 9,10-dimethyl 1,2-benzoanthracene, often called as DMBA. This is a specific type of hydrocarbon that scientists use in experiments because of its strong cancer-causing ability. Notice the number in its name. They tell us where the methyl groups are attached to the molecule. So I will appreciate if you draw the structure by yourself. So this is a structure, a potent experimental carcinogen with increased potency due to methyl groups. Here is the structure of the compound shown. You can see that there is presence of two methyl groups. Further, let us talk about from where your DMBA comes from. It is mainly used in animal experiments to induce tumors, helping researchers understand cancer transformation. This means it is not something you encounter in daily life, but it is very important for scientific studies. So, what about its mechanism? It causes cancer by forming DNA adducts. These are chemical bonds with DNA that damages its structure. These DNA damage can lead to mutations and eventually tumor growth. So, the way DMBA interacts with DNA is what makes it so dangerous. Now, let us practice a question. So, here we have to order the given electrophile according to their reactivity. Okay, sorry, the given compounds according to the reactivity with an electrophile E+. Compound given are chlorobenzene, then we have 2,4-dinitrochlorobenzene, then para-nitrochlorobenzene. Let us have a look on to the solution. First of all, what are electrophiles? Electrophile is a species that is attracted to electrons and accepts a pair of electrons to form new covalent bond. In other words, electrophiles are electron loving and look for places where they can gain electron. This is important because the reactivity of our compounds depends on how easily they can interact with an electrophile. Now, what are the factors that influence this electrophilicity? First of all, we are looking for electron withdrawing groups or EWGs. These groups pull electron density away from the rest of the molecule, making the molecule more reactive to electrophiles. So, if a compound has strong electron withdrawing groups, it generally reacts more readily with electrophiles because the positive character is increased. The second factor is electron donating group. These groups pushes electron density towards the molecule, so which can neutralize positive charge and make the compound less reactive towards electrophile. Got it? So, the more electron donating groups, the less reactive the compound will be with an electrophile. Then we have steric hindrance. So, bulky groups obstruct the nucleophile, reducing the accessibility and reactivity of the electrophilic site. So, this is the information that you need. Now, we can move on to the compounds one by one. So, continuing with the solution. First, let us focus on chlorobenzene. It is a simple benzene ring with a chlorine atom attached to it. We will analyze how the presence of chlorine affects the electron distribution in the ring and as a result its reactivity with the electrophiles. So, chlorine's electronegativity causes it to pull electron density away from the benzene towards the chlorine through the sigma bond. This is called the inductive effect. Withdrawal of electrons make the electron less attractive to electrophiles which are looking for areas of high electron density. Now, the strong inductive effect from chlorine decreases the overall electron density of the ring, making it less reactive towards electrophilic attack. This is important because electrophiles are more likely to react with rings that have higher electron density. So, here is your way to display the opposite part. You can see here that the chlorine is donating also electron onto the ring. So, they are kind of doing two things but on the opposite paths. But it is seen that It is the unique case where your inductive effect is being is dominating your resonance effect. So this electron delocalization or the lone pairs delocalization is of no use in front of electronegativity of the chlorine, and hence the inductive effect is more dominant, making the ring less electron rich. So you can say that, however, a chlorine has only one pair of electrons that it can donate into the ring, benzene ring, through resonance, known as the plus R effect. This resonance donation increases electron density at the ortho and para position, partially counteracting the inductive effect. So it is partially counteracting, not fully. Because of this resonance, the ortho and para position on the ring become more electron rich. This makes these positions more susceptible to attack by electrophiles, even though the overall ring is less reactive compared to benzene itself. So the key takeaway is that while chlorine withdraws electrons through the sigma bond, it also donates electrons through the resonance, especially at the ortho and para position. This dual effect influences where and how easily electrophilic substitution can occur on the ring. So this was all about chlorobenzene. Now continuing the solution. Now let us focus on 2,4-dinitrochlorobenzene. Here is its structure. Notice it has two nitro group attached to the benzene ring along with a chlorine atom. The positions of these groups are important in understanding their effects. So the nitro group, which have the formula NO2, are some of the strongest electron withdrawing groups in the organic chemistry. This means they pull electron density away from the benzene ring, making it less reactive to electrophiles. Then these nitro groups withdraw electrons in two ways: through a strong inductive effect, which is the pulling of electrons through the sigma bond, and through a strong resonance effect, which involves the delocalization of electrons away from the ring. Both affects the ring and make it less reactive. Now let us consider the effect of chlorine. So chlorine is highly electronegative, so it pulls electron density away from the benzene ring through the sigma bond. This further decreases the electron density onto the ring. Now the reason is that, as we talked about it earlier, the strong inductive effect is dominant over the minus R effect, and hence it deactivates the ring, but still it is ortho-para directing. So chlorine donates its lone pair onto the ring via the resonance, increasing the electron density on the ring at the ortho and para position, making it more susceptible to attack by the electrophile, because electrophiles are electron-loving species. Overall, we can say that due to two powerful nitro group, the benzene is dominantly electron deficient. Okay. Moving on further, continuing with the solution. The third one is nitrobenzene. Here is the structure of nitrobenzene. Notice the nitro group attached to the benzene ring. This group plays a major role in determining how the compound reactivity will decrease. So the nitro group is electron withdrawing group. It withdraws electron through sigma and pi, both by your inductive effect and resonance effect minus R effect respectively. So nitro group is showing both a strong inductive effect and a strong resonance effect in the negative form. Therefore, it is less susceptible to attack by an electrophile. So what will be the decreasing order of electrophile overall, if I want to say? So it is very clear that chlorobenzene is the most reactive one among all the three given in the electrophilic aromatic substitution. Then comes your nitrobenzene, which has increased number of electron withdrawing group, which is NO2. Now the least reactive is 2,4-dinitrochlorobenzene, which has 3 electron withdrawing group. So as you are increasing the number of electron withdrawing group, you are seeing that their reactivity is decreasing. Therefore, the decreasing order is chlorobenzene, then the less reactive is nitrobenzene, and the least reactive is 2,4-dinitrochlorobenzene towards your electrophilic aromatic substitution. Now let us summarize our today's class. So we started with carcinogens. So carcinogens are substances that can cause cancer, and they do this by damaging the DNA inside our cells. When DNA is damaged, cells can start to grow out of control, which is how cancer develops. DNA damage, this is a key mechanism in how carcinogens work. Then toxicity is a measure of how a harmful substance is to living organism. It includes effects like poisoning, damage to organs. For example, if a chemical causes liver damage or affects the nervous system, that is a part of its toxicity. It is important to remember that all toxic substances are not carcinogens, but can be dangerous, but both can be dangerous. Then we focused on carcinogenic hydrocarbons. So these are a specific group called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon or PHs, which are formed during combustion, like when we burn fuel or when someone smokes cigarette. After entering the body, these compounds can be metabolized into form that directly damages DNA, increasing the risk of cancer. This shows us why exposure to smoke or exhaust can be harmful. So, finally, we looked upon electrophilic reactivity. This refers to how easily a molecule can react with electron-rich species. If a hydrocarbon has electron withdrawing group attached to it, its reactivity decreases. Then, what is the reason? Because the groups pull electron away, making the molecule less reactive to electrophiles. Understanding this helps us to predict how different hydrocarbon will behave in chemical reactions. This was all for today's class. Thank you for your attention.